Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear students, welcome to our online class. And last class we stopped till here in the central nervous system. We saw uh, the brain. We started with the brain, and in the brain we saw the meninges, and the meninges is uh, contains three main parts, that is dura mater, arachnoid, and pia mater. Then we saw about cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, then finally we stop till here. Okay, so in this class we will start or resume from here, inshallah. So the brain consists of three important parts. The first one is cerebrum, and second one is cerebellum, and third one is medulla oblongata. So the cerebrum, it is the largest portion of the brain. Okay, and it is divided into two halves. Okay, the first one is right cerebral hemisphere, and the second one is left cerebral hemisphere. So the outer surface of the cerebrum, they are convoluted. Okay, convoluted means it's like a fold. Okay, uh, not fold like, but it contains like ridges and grooves. Okay, ridges means like this, grooves is like this. Okay, so if you see this, you can see that they have these convolutions here. You can see here. Okay, these are the convolutions on this hemisphere. Okay, so this is what is called as convolutions. You can see. Okay, they are convoluted with ridges and grooves. Ridges means, okay, it's like a here, these are the ridges and grooves. So the outer portion of the cerebrum, it contains cell bodies of the it is also called as cortex of the cerebrum. Okay, cortex, it is the outer portion. It contains the cell bodies of the neurons. Okay, and we know that it is the basic unit of the nervous tissue. So it is grayish in color, so this is called as gray matter. Okay, the outside cortex, which is grayish in color, so it is called as gray matter. So the inner portion of the cerebrum, if you look into the inner portion of the cerebrum, it consists of white matter. Okay, it consists of white matter because it mainly contains the axons or the nerve fibers of the neurons. You know that neurons have the nerve fibers which is called as axons. So that is contained in the inner portion of the cerebrum. So they are called as white matter. Okay, so what is the function of this cerebrum? So the highly developed cortex or gray matter, it enables us to think, reason out, invent, plan, and memorize. So any intellectual processes, okay, like thinking, like reasoning out and planning, all these things, it is a function of this cortex, that is cerebrum. So the overall cerebrum is the seat of intelligence. So whatever intelligence we have, thinking power, willpower, and consciousness and planning, all this, it is taken care by the cerebrum. So it controls all voluntary actions. Okay, it's not controlling any non-voluntary actions like breathing or heartbeat or like that. We think, right? It's a voluntary action. So it makes us well, so it helps us to make well thought out and informed decisions. So when we are taking decision, it is related to the function of the cerebrum. Okay, so here you can see in this diagram the major function of the different areas of the brain. You can see here. Okay, this one is for movement, and this the entire cerebrum is for memory, speech, smell, taste, hearing, all these things. You can see the major function of the different areas of the brain. The next, the main part of the brain is the cerebellum. Okay, it is much smaller area of the brain located below the cerebrum. Okay, and it has no convolutions. So here you can see this the cerebellum. It has no convolutions, okay, like this. These are the convolutions, you can see the thread like thing. So the cerebellum does not have that, okay, but it has numerous furrows. So this you see the lines here, they are called as furrows, okay. They have a lot of furrows, and this also has an outer cortex which is made up of gray matter and an white matter like the cerebrum, okay. So the main function of the cerebellum is to maintain the balance of the body, and for that they coordinate the muscular activity. So what do you mean by maintaining the balance? So if you're walking or standing, we have to maintain the balance, okay. So if you're walking, the the body has to maintain the balance, otherwise we will fall down. That's why the babies, before learning to walk, it is very difficult for them to walk. They'll fall down because maintaining the balance they did not learn. So the brain has to uh, function properly, in the sense like actively, so that the balance of the body is maintained during walking. So the cerebrum and the cerebellum, they work in close coordination. So if we stand up and walk, the impulse for this activity arises in the cerebrum, okay. The impulse, the signal, it arises in the cerebrum. Then the act of walking, it involves coordinated working of many muscles, okay. You are using your hand moving and your legs are moving, so there are a lot of coordination between many muscles needed during walking, okay. And our muscles have to be contracted and relaxed, okay. These all are taken care by the cerebellum, okay. So if you see an alcoholic person, when he's drunk, he walks clumsily, okay. It is difficult for him to maintain the balance because under the effect of the alcohol, the cerebellum is unable to coordinate the muscular movements properly. So that is the reason why the alcoholic person walks clumsily. So that's the function of the cerebellum. Then the next is going to be the function of the medulla oblongata. So the medulla oblongata is the lowest portion of the brain. It is located at the base of the skull here. You can see, okay. So this is the medulla oblongata. You can see here the medulla oblongata here, okay. The function of the medulla oblongata is to control the activities of our visceral organs, okay. Visceral organs means those organs are inside, like alimentary canal, the movement, the breathing, beating of heart, and many other involuntary actions inside our body. So the medulla oblongata, it is roughly triangular, not exactly triangular, but it's roughly triangular in shape, and it is continued behind as the spinal cord, okay, because it is just the lower portion of the brain. So when it's continuing, it continues as the spinal cord in the behind. Um, so the injury to the medulla oblongata, it generally results in death because the involuntary and vital actions like breathing and heartbeat may be stopped, okay. So medulla oblongata, it is responsible for the function or the activities of the visceral organs like breathing and heartbeat, everything. So if there is a damage or injury to the medulla oblongata, then these functions will be stopped, so then it leads to death. And the next is going to be the spinal cord. As mentioned that spinal cord is an integral part of the central nervous system, okay, and it extends from the medulla oblongata as we told, and it continues downward through the length of the backbone, and it lies within the neural canal of the vertebral column or the backbone. So the spinal cord, it lies within the backbone, that you have to remember, okay. So in the spinal cord, the arrangement of the gray and the white matter. We saw gray and white matter, right? So the gray matter is the outside and the white matter is inside in the brain, but in the spinal cord it is reversed. Okay, so the gray matter containing the cell bodies of the motor neurons, they lie inside. Okay, and the white matter, they lie outside. Okay, like reverse to the brain. In the brain the white matter lies inside, but in the spinal cord the white matter lies outside. Okay, so the white matter, as we told, it contains axons. So in the spinal cord these axons runs longitudinally. Okay, longitudinally like this, to and fro from the brain, and even crossing from one side to the other side. Okay, so there is a small central canal. Canal means like a pathway. Okay, so in the center of the spinal cord, uh, which runs through the entire length of the this thing vertebral column, and uh, it continues with the cavities of the brain. Okay, cavities means like a passage, like, okay, space. So it is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid, and just like the brain, here also the cerebrospinal fluid, it acts as a shock proof cushion, and also it forms a medium for the exchange of food materials, waste products, respiratory gases with neurons. Okay, so this is the function of the cerebrospinal fluid. The another function of the cerebrospinal fluid, it acts as a medium for exchange of food materials, waste products, and some respiratory gases with the neurons. Okay, so for the neurons it acts as the medium. Okay, the cerebrospinal fluid acts as a medium for this exchange. Okay, so the externally, when you see externally, the spinal cord is covered by same three membranes like the in the meninges, like dura mater, arachnoid, pia mater. Okay, just like with the continuation with the brain. Okay, so here is the diagrammatic representation or a sketch of the internal structure of the spinal cord. This is the internal structure of the spinal cord. So here you can see it is the white matter that is outside, and the gray matter that is inside in the spinal cord, and here you have the ventral nerve. Okay, it's connecting to the receptor and to the effector in the muscle. Okay, so here you have the sensory neuron. Okay, so it's basically how the spinal cord is connected to the receptor on the effector muscles. Okay, and the functions of the spinal cord, there are three main functions. The first one is that it controls the reflexes below the neck. So whatever reflexes you have below the neck, reflexes means any emergency reaction that is needed from your body. Okay, for example, suddenly a flying object comes near your face and you suddenly move your, I mean, or sorry, that's not an example. I'm giving you an example, like you are keeping your hand and suddenly a hot object touches your hand. Okay, and suddenly you remove your hand. Okay, once you feel that, suddenly you remove your hand. So these kind of actions, okay, is called reflexes. Okay, reflexes. So in that case, spinal cord is uh, that is the function of the spinal cord. Okay, it controls the reflexes below the neck, and it conducts sensory impulses from the skin and muscles to the brain. Okay, so we all know that the sensory nerves are used to conduct the impulses from the skin and the muscles to the brain, and when the impulses are processed in the brain, the motor responses, okay, they are conducted from the brain to the muscles of the trunk and the limbs. Trunk is basically the lower body, okay, and the limbs of our body. So these are the major functions of the spinal cord. So inshallah we will see in the next class about the reflex action. Study well, inshallah. We'll see in the next class. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.